Hello and welcome to the Philippines. Do you see that haze in the background? A couple of weeks ago I noticed haze some days, and you might be able to see it there, or might not. Kind of unique, interesting cloud formations there. I think this was between 5 and 6 in the morning. One morning I think some dogs barking woke me up. Very common occurrence here. You can hear the roosters going. They don't bother me nearly as much as the dogs do. Many of the neighbors have dogs, and they'll bark and bark and bark through the day, and many times long periods of time during the night as well. A little easier to see the haze here. I really noticed it in 2015, my first trip here, and many people said, "Oh no, it's just haze." I said, "No, it's coming from a fire someplace," and it turned out it was coming from Indonesia fires, the peat fires down in Indonesia, and Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, other areas are being hit by them as well. Just depends on which way the wind is blowing, and Thailand itself does some burning of crops certain times of the year, and they can get some heavy smoke in some of their cities as well. I'm going to cover some of the news that's been in some information that's been in the news here the last week or so. And I'd mentioned this previously. So many of you already know, if you're married to a Filipino and you're out of the country, you used to be able to get in during this crisis if you showed a marriage certificate. But of course, people started printing their own fake marriage certificates to get into the Philippines. So now you're required to go to the embassy in the country that you're in, the Philippine embassy, to get a visa before coming into the Philippines. Millions of Filipinos have been out of work for 4 or 5 months and really struggling financially. More and more they are bartering. I've got this, you got that, you have food, I will trade you. And I know this was big, back in the 80s in the United States, I think. And then they tried to come up with ways to tax it. I've heard somebody mention that here too, but I think they've backed off. They're not going to try to tax bartering transactions here. There was a cattle ship that capsized off the coast of Japan. I think it was headed for China. Did it come from Australia or New Zealand? I think. But it had quite a number of Filipino crew members, I think. I think they finally rescued one, but they have found two who have died in the mishap. And I'm not sure if they're still searching. They had called off the search for a while. I'm not sure if they've started that again or not. The quarantine situation, pretty much the whole country is on modified GCQ, which allows more businesses to open up. But the big but is that they still have the stay-at-home order. You still need a Q pass or quarantine pass to get out. They are very rare. The building I'm in probably has 50 people in it. I think there's one pass per day, basically. So you have to try to reserve it ahead of time for a couple of hours at a time. So very difficult to do any traveling, to spend any money anywhere. They are opening up a few of the tourist places, but it's pretty much just for people who are in that general area. Boracay, just the people from that area in western Visayas. Molbol, just for those areas in that general area, I think. There is some good news, and the Emergency Operations Center says COVID recovery rate here in the Philippines is 87%. I believe that's for the Philippines. Might be for Cebu, I'm not positive. There is more and more good news as the weeks and months drag on here. More and more of the older medicines are being used and effectively, are even those who have severe cases of the virus. Fewer and fewer of them are succumbing or dying from the virus. And the vitamin D, vitamin B1, I just watched a video today, vitamin B1, and a number of other long used drugs are being used to treat this illness. I've been following several medical sites for, well, 4 or 5 months now, and been accumulating data and putting off doing any video about it. But I think I will put a video out about some of the things, because it probably isn't making it to the regular news channels. You probably can't read this, but this article was about the waste, the masks and the face shields and all that type of thing. It's not being disposed of properly. 3 and 4 months later, they're trying to address this. Masks are being tossed in regular garbage. They're being reused or thrown and reused by other people who don't want to continue to spend money for masks. It all adds up. Buy a rice or buy a mask. Easy choice, many situations. Anyway, they're saying that they should be put in yellow bags and or otherwise marked, especially. And the garbage people need to know that that is hazardous waste, biohazard, and disposed of in a certain way. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm sure it's not going to happen. They have moved back the start of the schools, and anyway, they're trying a number of different things. They're trying. There are a lot of remote areas where the internet is very effective. There are a lot of areas where the internet is very slow or non-existent. There some areas they're trying to use radios, handing out radios to people so that they can receive their class information over radio. Other people are, well, they've got a number of different solutions that they're trying, but basically schools are they're struggling to get the people into a learning atmosphere again. This type of headline makes the news almost every day. A person gets nabbed. Sometimes there's a shootout, somebody gets killed, the drug dealer, sometimes the police officer trying to arrest them in the middle of the night. They do a lot of buy bus type operations. And I think a lot of the locals are starting to they're seeing that the police are making inroads into these drug dens, and they were telling the police about the druggies in their neighborhood. Unfortunately, it's usually the low end guys that get caught up in this, and not the higher end, the big dogs. But you definitely don't want to be messing with that business, especially as a foreigner. I was told by a police officer a few years ago that most arrests in the Philippines are made by undercover officers. So you don't see a lot of police out there like you do in the U.S., for instance, and probably other countries, but there are a lot of undercover officers. And this type of news is almost a weekly, something you see weekly. Talisay fire just south of Cebu City razes 75 houses and displaces a few hundred people, because there's many people in each of those houses. The article I read, I think they said they estimated 1 million in damage, so that would probably make that a what's called a squatter village type place, probably electrical fire. Someone was actually doing some welding in the residence I think it started in. Not a good idea, but electrical wiring in these places, I would say, quite possibly do not meet any kind of code at all. Many people waiting for the vaccine, and we'll see if it happens. Anyway, Russia is eyeing doing the manufacture here in the Philippines, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. I have heard one discussion, people were talking about who's going to take the vaccine first, and one group of medical people said, well, probably 1/3 of the people will take it eagerly right away. 1/3 of the people will wait to see if the first group dies or has terrible side effects from the vaccine, which of course you're going to have to wait many months, 6 months, a year. and the other third of the people just aren't going to take the vaccine. Period. I read something very interesting the other day. I was on the Department of Tourism site here in the Philippines and looking at all the different information. And it stated, I think, if I'm accurate, I think it stated that the water in Manila and Cebu, and I think it said most large cities, is potable, which means you can drink it. Now, that has not been my understanding since I started here. I have had somebody comment on a couple of my videos about water. Can you drink it? That they do drink the tap water up in their part of Manila, so you can ask about it. But everybody I know uses the bottled water. I go through about every 5 days. I go through a 5 gallon thing of purified water, and it costs me, I think, 40 pesos, about 80 US cents per for the week for the 5 gallons. Anyway, there are companies that are planning to install more water treatment plants to help that issue. Another issue is the dams. Where do you get the water to treat it in the first place? This is coming from a river, I believe. There are a couple dams outside of Cebu and a couple dams outside of Manila where they get water from, and fortunately we've been getting some rain this year after a long drought last year, and it's starting to fill those dams up. Do you have any exciting news to share with the rest of us? Leave it in the comments. Anyway, this was a beautiful, interesting view that particular morning I took that, and hopefully the haze will go away in the near future. Anyway, safe travel, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.